so let's try to figure out this major invasion. Uh-oh, I'm worried. This is not actually charging. Maybe it's fully charged. Okay. This weird multi-power invasion. First of all, the leader, Ragdagesis, is special and goes on a campaign out of sequence before the normal movement and battle of the Allied nation stacks. Now, this is a repeat of what's here, but with more detail. Okay. The problem is Ragdagesis, or whatever, is actually an Allen, and he is not the only Allen leader. There is also this Gundricus, who I think is dealt with as well. Okay, let's keep looking. Before the regular movement and battle of the Allied nations, if he manages to successfully besiege Rome, the city is razed. Flip the Rome capital to the razed side. A level 1 city may be built here. Interesting. Okay, so Rome will never recover. But this is only if he does it. Each barbarian nation participating in the campaign earns a bonus of 3 extra pillage markers. Rome is incredibly wealthy. Ignoring events or calamities, and 10 victory points in addition to normal Rome pillage bonus. Okay, so he goes on campaign. How many campaigns does he have? Because he's quite far away. He only gets 2 campaigns. So he could get, I don't know how far. 1, 2, 3. He could get to Venice. Yeah, he could do it. Okay. The normal sequence resumes with the first unit stack step of the invasion, during which only half of the allied barbarian nation's surviving units may move. It's up to the controlling players to decide how to split the allowance between nations. If they can't agree, each nation is halved. During the second unit stacks of the invasion, what is this? This is the first unit stack, so there is going to be an extra thing of the allied barbarian nations. Stacks are free to move normally. The remaining leaders of the allied barbarians, including Guduricus, go on campaign normally after that. And then each of the great nation invasion barbarian hordes can move a third time during the campaign of its respective leader. I assume only once during that third time. How is this? That looks like this is all listed there in a shortened version. Okay. So, I don't know what it means to be participating in this campaign. These are Vandals, not Allens, I'm sorry. Can the Vandals just do it on their own and be the only ones who get the points? Or, and in fact, that may make the most sense because from their choice, Allens, Burgundians, and Suebi are the others. Well, the Burgundians and Suebi each have to move closer. The Allens could actually join in this at the same movement distance, but from these guys, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 because of the leader. No, 3 because they're not moving entirely with the leader. So they only get to here, and then it becomes harder to get down. So I may have a hard time, but I may want to grab some other units while I'm moving. I'm not sure quite what the rules with that are. I've been kind of playing fast and loose with them, as with everything here. But now, with hordes and hordes of units available, I gotta be a little bit more careful, I think. So now we're looking at the leader campaign, which is not specified here, but is somewhere else. So you can drop off units and continue moving. It can pick them up along the way. Yeah, this is not what I'm doing. Units that do not move with a leader the entire don't get the bonus. I'm looking for the leader not this. During the leader campaigns, units may move only to join the leader or under his direction. That's 22B. Okay. That's not really near here. That's somewhere after battles. Interesting. Okay, military campaigns. Leaders have a campaign value. At the start of the campaign, the leader and his stack can be redeployed anywhere in friendly territory. What's friendly territory? Again, I'm going to assume at least one of these things has to be there. So friendly territory may be Germania. And I have not been paying attention to that too well. But I don't think I'm too far off. I think the Visigoths might have been able to get into Gaul in a way that could have been useful to them, but whatever. Connected friendly territory, maybe not. A barbarian nation can never move its horde. The leader can collect and drop off as long as movement and stacking allowances are observed. So that's kind of a problem because my stacking allowances are already problematic. But I could move forward and leave a pile of 1-unit stacks, which is kind of how I've been doing it. So I think I'm kind of okay. I'm just maybe not being specific enough in terms of care. All right, let me swap batteries and we'll try this. I looked at the Swebby and they have no units that really help me, so I'm not going to have them involved in this. I'm taking Alans and Burgundians though because they're able to give me some good units, and I took some extra Burgundian infantry just to take losses. Now, I've made my way down to here and I still have a movement point left, but the Romans are going to try to intercept in the mountains. Here's the problem. This guy is such a good leader with +3 units on his command that I'm going to have trouble facing him no matter what. We were stopped and are going to get flung back across, and that's not good because I think that means we're done. We failed in our attempt. And in fact, we couldn't have made it anyway. Because we were not close enough. This may be the why the barbarians need an extra action to get down there. The Vandals started up here. The Vandals started in Teutonia up here, and they moved, and yeah, they would have needed another move to get into place. And yes, I screwed up. I should have seen that that was necessary. I can't do much about that. I would have been stopped anyway. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I was counting it as though I got 2 actions on this, and I do not. We're going to see how much the rest of what's going on hurts. I guess these are all stacked together allied. I recover these 2. And the neat thing is, because I had an allied force, the Romans recover their army. Because I had an allied force, I actually am able to score victory points for everyone. It was just a couple victory points for each. Honorius finally croaked. And that leaves me, I believe, with no Roman leader. I'm not sure. Do I have one for this turn? No, it's this Bonifacia for next turn. I'm just checking because last turn we had this special thing where, hey, a leader can arise if there was no leader. I mean, what are the chances that I could have battered my way through? None. If I get intercepted anywhere along here, it's over. And I don't think the Roman army would have disintegrated earlier. So I think the conquest of Rome here is almost impossible. And this is probably when it historically happened, so, Apparently I was cheating. The Vandals couldn't have gone there submitted. Oops. Sorry, the Alans are submitted to Rome. In the submitted state of the Alans, the Vandals are cutting a deal, same player. There are 12, well, there's 24 units. That means 12 of them get to act. What they're saying is, give me 6 of that 12, and you 2 can each get 3. Otherwise, what's going to happen? I don't know. Is anybody not getting bonused by this? 2, 3, 4, 5. He's better off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what? The Swebbies say that's not a good deal. I'm getting 3 anyway. You want a special deal? You take 5. I'll take 3. Now, here's the problem. The Vandals with 5. Does that make sense? They have a big army. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think they've only got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they would only be getting 3 as well. So I think that's a workable deal. Both of these are getting 1 extra. I think he's getting 1 extra. And the Vandals are not getting to move any pieces. The Allens are not getting to move any pieces. These little leader activations, the Burgundians tried to cross here, thinking down here looked too cluttered and too painful. So they took their 3 units, but they got smacked by the Franks and thrown back across the Rhine. The Romans defeat the actual Vandals trying to cross at Switzerland. They had several interception attempts, but finally made it from Raetia. And those are their best units. That was probably what they should have used, but they kind of wanted to fall back, I guess. I don't know. A couple of real kills, though. A Limite, which, of course, are just doomed. And a couple of points changing, and that puts me now, last but not least, to the Swebby. Now, this is just leader activations, unless I fucked something up, right? No, this is a campaign. Wait, what? This is the first step of the invasion. Then there's going to be a second step of the invasion where all the units get to go again. And then the leaders each get to go. But they get to pull their horde yet another time, which is kind of important because expending the horde as one of the units they move didn't seem reasonable. This time, the Franks, again, but they had to leave a unit behind so that they keep control of this, threw the Swebby back. The Roman, barbarians are doing or the Romanized barbarians are doing a pretty good job of holding this invasion off. Up here it was more problematic, but, still, it was not gained. However, we're not done yet, because we got to find a rule book for the Goths. They're on specific, which now says we do a second set of unit stacks where their whole forces are able to move, and they probably want to take their hordes. Now, this is going to give me enough force that I can push my way through the Franks, at least. I'm not so sure about the Romans, but of course, things are kind of open here, so somebody who's slipping down this way might be in good shape. Is there a crossing arrow from Sicily? No, shit. Hey, there's people who want to go to Africa. They've got to go the long way through Spain. Huns are still in this horrible position where we're submitted to the Western Romans, which means we're allied to the Alemanni and the Franks. And to the Western Romans, I don't know that we can go anywhere or do anything. And there's really not much. We have to make it to Hispania, but somebody else has to clear the way, and nobody's opened anything up. And here's the other problem. Who controls the province? Chances are it's Rome, and I can't just move into that shit. At least not to park. I can move through it, but can't park in it. So I think the Alani are kind of doomed. They're going to find some place in Germany, and they'll probably just end up settling in Germany or something. Again, successfully repulsed the Burgundians going through the north. Now, the Burgundians had a few more pieces this time, but they're still at a disadvantage trying to cross the river. Vandals have successfully broken through at Venice. Interestingly enough, Vienna's over here in France. I'm always confused when I see something like that. And that puts me to the Swebby, who get their, what is this? Jesus, is this the first turn of the invasion? No, this is the second turn of the invasion, and then we get the leader campaigns. Suebi have just successfully submitted the Franks. That means they get to score Frankish territory, which I don't know if they care about, but this is their way through. Of course, they have to withdraw, which is not so hot. But at least they can walk through Frankish territory and maybe get to where they're going. Well, let's see where other people end up. The thing, I think this invasion is actually allied with each other, which means everybody can creep through the Franks, with one exception, the Alains. They can't get anywhere because wherever they're, I mean, they can go through the Franks, but they got nowhere to go. Anywhere that they could head to, except, nope, I was going to say except the Germans. No, there's basically nothing the Alains can do, and they want to get their way towards Hispania. Now, cutting my way through the Byzantines doesn't seem like a possibility, so I'm just going to hang out in Germany, doing nothing. But the Burgundians, of course, can slip through, and I don't think, were they the next one? Yeah, they're the next ones. They can slip through the Franks because things are transitive, and these are vassals of an ally. I think they're aligned. If they're not, this whole combined attack didn't really work. Burgundians were trying to slip their way down to Burgundia to fight the Germans there, which may or may not have worked. But they got intercepted by some Romans as they moved into Paris and defeated the Romans, but that stopped them. They tried to siege Paris. That didn't work. Terror didn't work. Nothing. So they fell back, and I believe are done, collecting like 7 or 8 points. But they're, missing 5 or something that they could have gained inside Gaul. But they did a lot of fighting, so whatever. Those managed to push their way through Cisalpina. They had to fight a battle. They didn't get the successful siege. They retreated here because other guys slipped through the north without getting. Actually, I've got a 3-point retreat. I could retreat further than I did. I could retreat 1, 2, 3 into Septimania, which is where I want to be, and working my way towards Africa. And that's what I got to remember is that could the Burgundians have made it somewhere interesting instead of here? Because they're the ones who have not yet retreated. Let's see. They want Lotharingia, Rhodanus, Alps. Probably not. From here, the Romans came from, I don't know, down here or something. I could not retreat through these, but I could go one. I could have made it to Aquitania. Do I want that? Arvinia. I think I could make it to Arvinia. So let's hide down there instead. That way I get a couple of points. And yeah, I mean, the idea of retreating, of course this does not have a city, so it counts as rural. It is not clear, so it's not like cultivated or anything like that. But, what the hell is this? Why do I have multiple colors of clear? Oh, this is swamp. Okay. Yeah, my brain's just not working. Okay. And that means, last but not least, I have the Suebi, who can try to push their way in. And I got to keep checking things because here's the thing. If Rome loses something, like if they lost Italy, that would have made it possible for the Alani to move in there. They can't do it right now. Like, they lost their chance because they moved too early in the thing. But yeah, now the Suebi go, and the Franks are vassals of an ally, so they will let them cut through. And it really sucked to have to go first as the Alani. And the Suebi screwed the pooch and got themselves intercepted and submitted. Which means they kind of can't go wandering around Rome. But they have Paris now. Not exactly where they want it to be. They wanted to make their way, I think, down to Spain. But they're done. The Vandals have, I believe, already gone. They're over there, yes. And that means we have made our way down to the 2 new barbarian states. Now we have to be a little careful because I gotta remember to move these guys. Where are the Ostrogoths? Still here. These guys actually I think are all fine. The Ostrogoths have not moved, have they? Did I just forget them? No, they were way up here and they're moving down. Okay, fine. They've got forever to go. But yeah, I've got these 2 new groups, the Gepati and Hurle. I guess we could push them out tonight. I'm tired as hell, but let's see what they're doing. Well, because then I'll be on the civilized and that's fine. This is not an invasion. Hercules. What are they up to? They would like to loot Rome for 15 victory points. It looks to me like they want to go to Italy. In a big way. Okay, now this is kind of interesting. Wait, what? What? Holy fuck. Alright, so I don't know what these numbers mean. Alright, so here it like says 6 turn 6, 9 turn 9. Here it says 6 turn 4. I am guessing that this is turn 6, but I can't give you any guarantees on that. It says turn 6 in the Persian's little rule book, probably elsewhere. So I'm guessing this is just an error, and it's probably in the errata. They were pretty good at catching that kind of crap. Gepidae, I'm looking and saying, some Huns would be useful. I can't control them completely, but I might get some victory points off them. I'm interested in areas near them. It might be worth taking a shot at them. In the meanwhile, though, it might also be worth me trying to shift down. I'm interested in Pannonia. That's kind of the problem. But remember, I get an extra action. So if I attack Pannonia, leaving my horde behind, because it's not that big a deal for me to move my horde. So these guys wanted to move their horde, right? These guys, maybe not so much. Oops. I couldn't move that far. Because this is not an invasion, so the horde can't get the leader bonus, right? Okay, but these guys get something of an advantage too. There's no real reason for me to feel like I have to move the horde, except of course anybody can submit me who wants, the areas that I'm interested in and wants to cut my victory points in half. Kind of like I'm thinking about doing to the Huns. Instead, I just took multiple shots at Pannonia, basically 4 die rolls. None of them came through. I could be here in Dalmatia, which I would prefer, because of the mountain advantage, and it's my bigger victory point place. But yeah, I did not succeed in taking that. Had I taken it, yeah, submitting the Huns might be a reasonable thing. Submitting these shitheads might be useful too. Again, maybe they'll end up moving to be near my horde or something, so I could gain some points off them just by serendipity. I don't think I got any victory points for killing them, though. The Huns, one of the dangers of that is these guys actually could intercept. It's unlikely, but I'd rather not fight the Huns. So, the idea of just pillaging a little city sounded like it would be a cool thing. It also would be helpful to own a city. Like if I own a walled city that I took, I wouldn't have to burn the walls down like people are doing with things like Venice. Instead, I could actually get a value from it. But yes, I wouldn't be gaining money from it, but there's a certain defensive, I don't know, not much. No. I'm just blathering. All right, so at this point we go on to the civilized nations, and we still have a fair amount of video left on this hour. for the life of me, I don't know who fucking submitted the Franks anymore. I know it's either the Suebi or the Burgundians, and I could go back and listen, I guess. But yeah, that's a pain in the butt. I think it was the Suebi, because they cleared a path and the Burgundians came through, and then the Suebi came through. So I'll mark that down. If that's the case, they actually are no longer submitted to anyone, because the Suebi have been submitted, so the Franks have been freed. The Romans did something neat there. I'm not sure they wanted that. Like, they kind of get to count points 1.5 times if the Franks are submitted, but the Frankish points might be worth more, and I just don't have the willpower to try to figure out which one they'd rather have. And clearly they wanted to go beat things up, and getting a submission is worthwhile. They can always go back and submit the Franks again, I guess. Okay, so regarding my whole barbarian control thing, the important thing is actually still here. There's one exception still. That's in the errata. Barbarians control a civilized area if they control the majority of provinces. That's the thing I was ranting about. I didn't even see it here. I saw they control an area, barbarian or civilized, if the only hordes present are theirs, their allies, and their vassals. Now, this is still tricky because these are 2 points which seem to indicate an or relationship, rather than you need to have your horde. Well, so again, they still don't match together nicely, right? But this is the kind of mistake that I can see. And I think the horde control is perhaps, that's where the problem comes, is where you have this horde control thing. This other stuff here where they say they can control a civilized area if they control the majority of the provinces. I think that's what's intended if your horde is not present. Like, that's the way it's written, even if it isn't what the semantics mean. If we wanted to go with strict semantic meaning, each barbarian country controls all of the provinces that do not contain any opposing hordes. That's the semantic meaning of that. But again, I can see that mistake being made. But then there's kind of a tricky situation, which is the only hordes are there and they have a presence, which I think is what was built in for the barbarian side of things, but I'm not sure. And then, well, why, that no longer is a dual linking, and I don't know how I'm going to face it. I came up here thinking I would start playing, right? All right. But the point is that I wanted to point out here is not to reiterate what I've been saying, but that the barbarian controls a civilized area thing was what I did not see in this rule book that I went to go find, was that there was an additional thing other than horde-based control, which allows the Huns to control a civilized area. And remember, control is singular, so it has to be careful. But on the other hand, maybe it doesn't have to be singular. It's generally singular, but barbarians have a sort of weird relationship where they can walk through each other and everything. So control kind of only means something for their ability to intercept one another and their ability to score points for something. Scoring points is this abstraction that doesn't mean shit. It's not representing anything, right? Except perhaps general power on the board or survival or something. And the being able to intercept, it actually would make a good deal of sense that various barbarians in the same area could all intercept an incursion. How do you handle, here's the problem, there's no rules to handle conflicts between desires to intercept. So maybe we don't want to touch that. Massive set of Persian battles going off, trying to collect our biggest victory point gains here, which are the 10-pointers, Egypt, Phoenicia, Syria. I should be more interested in some of these other things that I'm not going for, but I'm having trouble getting troops in places. I could be hitting like Armenia and Armenia Minor, and instead I went into Cilicia, which was probably a mistake. I'm not going to undo it. 1, 2. I could hit Armenia with these guys, which gives those a chance to react. And they do. In part, just out of not paying much attention is how it happened, which is pretty common. You start, you know, it's a highly, there's so much interaction in the interceptions and everything, and it's just so hard to figure out what the hell you want to do. These kind of gain points at all times type of games, the reason they work and that it's not that big a burden to be paying attention to these player cards all the time in a Britannia or something like that is that the game itself isn't very complicated. You start making the victory points so complicated, and you had better make the way of getting them really easy to determine. If you have complicated play, the victory points should be fairly broad and not things that you're worried about trying to, you know, do all kind of specifics in. Now, you got away with this, or Thibaut got away with this in the EU, right? Le Grand Guerre, no problem. You know what you're trying to do. You're trying to win the Great War. EU, yes, you have a mishmash of victory points like this, but they're kind of they're kind of things you have to have in mind as your general goal. There are a lot of special rules, and sometimes events have their own victory points linked to them and everything, but generally it's within the execution of the event that you're looking at those victory points only. But then there's the final thing, and that may apply here too. The victory points don't fucking matter because, I mean, they're just your general guideline. You're not going to play a game of it where the balancing of the victory points was an important thing. The game is just so unbalanced and unreasonable. And this appears to be the same kind of thing. So the Persians ended up losing their leader with a campaign capability. They still have this guy, but he's not allowed to go anywhere that's of any value, actually. I could do a campaign to move some forces around. They ended up losing a lot more points to the Byzantines. The Byzantines have collected 15 points, some of which might have been gained from the Huns, but not many. But Persia gets that 20-point bonus, so they got 24 points off of this excessive attacks. I don't think they gained anything that's of use to them, though. I will have to check. Oh no, they gained Armenia. But yeah, I don't think they're getting any victory points for territory. And I would guess the Byzantines are going to get a pretty good territory bonus because they have defended the Near East and Egypt pretty well against the Persian attacks. I think that ends the Persian turn, which was quite an extensive one. We still have quite a bit of time left for the two Roman nations to go. I needed to look at, oh neat, each other barbarian named Rex eliminated. Shit, I don't know if I killed any. This is something I got to get used to. You know, again, it's something I should be used to from the Britannia model where there were a couple of these. The problem is, again, there's so much to this game that this mistake in a Britannia game, I could remember, oh yeah, I know the Romans killed this person. But there are so many different people. There are so many different things that it could have happened on. I don't know. So let's look to see if anybody's dead. if anybody's missing, it looks like the Suebi have lost their king. Now, that may have been a Rex. I think that's the only one. That's not what I was going to go to, and I'll look that up later. Because it's just a stack of shit, to try to remember. But what I wanted to do, and why I came on here, was I thought to myself, geez, I'm looking at the Roman victory points, and look, the turn 3, they have a penalty for Africa, Gallia, some other Meridolanius. I don't know where the fuck that is. Never heard of it. Okay, well, I don't know what that is. Gallia Septimiloris, but that's up here. This must be Gallia Meridolanius or whatever. So those are the two areas. And Hispania abandoned. And I wanted to look that up because I don't know what the fuck they mean by abandoned. Do they mean I no longer have control of it? Or am I not there at all? Given how early this is, I would say it's lost control of it, which means there's some question, perhaps in one of the Gauls here, that I may have lost a Gaul. That's all right now, and I may want to fix that, but it's a 10-point penalty for each. Okay, well, that's interesting, except I go over here in turn 4, I got totally different victory points, right? I got wait, this turn 3, sorry. Okay, turn 3, there's no victory points here, but they're listed here, and I think they make more sense as turn 3 victory points than they do as every turn checking. But again, here's a place where I gotta go try to paw through things. And now, I don't know, I don't think the living rules come with a bunch of appendices. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. The version that I had looked like, God knows, because I'm not gonna scroll through something on a fucking computer, okay? That's not why I buy board games. If I wanted to play computer games, then I'd be fine. Honestly, I'm not happy with the tendency of computer games to deliver their documentation not in an actual book anymore. But look, the computer game handles things, and if you need to look something up, it kind of teaches you through the tutorial instead of through the book. So I can understand that position here. This can't give you a tutorial. This game does not help you play itself, right? The printed materials are what I paid for, not some kind of online PDF, and not the missing scenarios on online PDF and whatever the hell else they decided to release this as. And yes, I knew what I was getting into. But, I just think it's kind of important to highlight this. Stay away from this guy's games if you have any expectation you're getting a complete game. You're getting something you have to piece together and figure out, no matter what. That has always been the case. Anyway, so what am I left with? Well, again, I'm left with either run downstairs and try to see if I can find this in the consolidated errata thread, or maybe there is some other PDF that contains it, or screw it. I'm pretty sure I'm getting plenty wrong anyway. Let's just play it how I think maybe it should be, which is the way we did things in the old days, okay? Back in the Avalon Hill days, you gonna really send a self-addressed, self-stamped envelope out to them with some question that 8,000 other people are asking too? No. You just hope maybe it shows up in errata someday, but you play it as it's written, to the best of your ability. And in some cases, there were games, and I'm going to point out, although Struggle of Nations is an excellent example, that just the rules were such a fucking mess for. And there were so many errors in them that had to be corrected. Now, they may have actually corrected them in the errata that got published in the rule book as a separate errata section. Talk about fucking crazy. Couldn't hold off printing for a couple of weeks. They may have been in there, but I still remember having a fair number of rules, questions, and whatever. And the way the rules are organized and whatever is important too. Something like Republic of Rome, the rules are organized as such a mess that it kind of doesn't matter if they were correct. Maybe you can find them eventually, but in terms of playability and being able to reference and everything, it's just as bad as having to make them up on your own. So I would rather make shit up on my own. If you're sitting there in a group and you don't want to spend an hour trying to figure out what a rule means or what its references are or whatever, any more than I would want to in a solo play. So screw it, man. Do what the best we can, and if you start finding things on a later play and you remember the differences, go for it. But something like this, it's what it is, and you just have to accept that. It's not a modern game. The rules are not written with any kind of modern rigor, and they aren't written as well as rules were back in the day for the most part. They're about as bad as they came. Anyway, what did I want to say? Yeah, what does abandon mean? I think it's lost, and I think I'm going to do it just for this turn as on the card, and whatever. It's just not worth running up and downstairs for. Things that I forget with a multi-power game, and especially when it's new to me, is, hey, what do I do with the cards? So like the Romans had this marriage card. They could have played this all throughout if they wanted to stop something. But this is a weird card. It's like, here, have $2, and now you can have 2 victory points if you leave me alone. Well, for most of the powers, it really wouldn't have been a worthwhile choice because this is a victory point turn. So I'm probably better off just getting the point of money over there. But I ought to look at these two. Similarly, the Alliance, I would have wanted to do this earlier, but I was holding that for $1. But the Mercenary, I might end up playing in order to grab an extra hunt or something and throw it against the Persians for my own turn. Remember, the Mercenary doesn't work how I thought in the first game. It has its own special rules in the rule book that aren't on the card. In the rule book, not on the card, not in the appendix, it allows for a turn. Yippee. Well, you can always distrust what I say or you should always distrust what I say. You could look in the appendix and maybe find me wrong. But this is my impression. And, one of the things is, as you start getting foiled more and more by rule structure, by the lack of rules, by having to look at errata, by not being able to write the errata in the rules, by all these factors, there's a snowballing effect, right? So the harder it is to cope with the rules, the more they start becoming impenetrable and difficult to deal with. So, a couple small mistakes that I make based on, a well-written rule set that I find the issues, it's a lot easier to just be like, oh, wow, I'm fucking stupid. But once you start seeing real issues to the extent that this game has, the assumption is there's something fucking wrong. But that little rant. So the thing the Romans have to do, I think the only place they're worried about a couple of places. But in terms of victory points, they are worried about Africa, Britannia. No, this is turn 2. Turn 3. Africa, Gallia, both Gallias, Hispania. Those are the only ones I'm worried about. And the fact that turn 2 has one of these, turn 3 and turn 4 have one of these, but they're different, leads me to believe that this is incorrect and that is more specific. In particular, though, nobody cares about Illyria. I'm willing to give Illyria up. So I'm not going to worry too much about these guys. And in fact, I'm not really worried about Italia. But where I am worried about is Gaul, and in particular Southern Gaul. Northern Gaul, I have, there are some Franks here. I moved some of my pieces, and that's part of the problem. Let me tilt the guys I moved. So Northern Gaul, I have to worry here, but they're not really taking control away from me. leave them alone. Southern Gaul, I'm worried because the Burgundians are sitting here, but they're not doing any damage to me. But these Vandals are. Now the Vandals have one city. I have one, two. Is there a city here? One. Okay, the Vandals have two cities. I have a couple of cities. I think I've lost. Oh, I have a third city. The line seems to go through here. It's barely visible. So I have control, but I don't have total control. But if I can submit the Vandals, I get total control. And that's where I want to do things now. And of course, if they're submitted, they're not going to hurt me too much as they're moving around within the empire. Rather than a purely military solution to this problem, I can offer a fetus. Now, the rules say I can only offer one, and I don't know how much table talk is acceptable, right? If I offer a fetus to the Vandals, I have the most gain from that. If I offer one to the Franks, that's going to spread them out more, but that might be advantageous to the Franks. What do they want for victory points? First of all, they get 3 they're certain to accept it, which is one of the issues to keep in mind. But they also want Austrasia and Flanders. They have both of them. So all I'm getting is 3 victory points, and I'm giving up territory and spreading the Franks out so that they're not covering things as well. So I think I'd like to offer it to the Vandals. A fetus does not reduce their victory points, but it increases the value. So this is kind of a win-win situation. So I think they're going to take it, and the answer is yes, they will. And that allows me to preserve my forces and maybe do something, you know, somewhat less vital than attacking the Vandals in terms of like maybe beating up someone else like the Visigoths and preventing them from moving around too much. With this though, is that I have to offer it provinces that I control. And this is why it's kind of iffy to do it with someone else. So the only provinces that I think I get value from is the Federati-controlled Fetis provinces, the ones I gave up. And that means I still wouldn't solve this problem, and I'd create a Federati that does not help me. So I think I have to actually beat up the Vandals. So do I want to give the Fetis to the Franks and just get the victory, give them the victory points for that? And I think the answer is yes. I have to give them 2 adjacent provinces. So hold on, they were here, 1, 2. We'll move this over here instead because I'll give them this, right? 1. No, I could make it down to here. Okay, I will give them these 2 provinces, and now they have to move into those. No, they have to move into them with as many forces as they can, so that's problematic too, because then I'd be stripping away their victory points by doing that. What do I want to do? I want to Fetis something with the Vandals to force them to move their entire stack into these provinces, say, which doesn't hurt me. Well, I can't force them into it. That's the problem. And so now I have to look at their victory point card and see, do they want these? Would they accept this? So right now they're in Septimus, which is a 5-point, and Provencia, which is a 5-point. Those are the provinces they're not likely to want to give up. So they might not accept the Fetis this turn. They might have accepted it on an earlier turn, you know, to give them stuff, and I should have done that then, maybe, except they weren't close enough. They busted their way through. So I think I'm just screwed and have to deal with what I have to deal with. Now, would I want to give the Germans something? That becomes another option, or the Visigoths. Well, I'd just be giving them victory points, really, because all this stuff I control, and this is the problem with Fettus, you control the thing and you're giving it to the other person, and you might be able to force them into a situation that is advantageous to you, but I want my total control, so I think I have to try to submit the Vandals anyway. So the hell with diplomacy, it doesn't work. Yeah, I feel like the diplomatic structure could be more attractive, and obviously I could be using it in some way with the Franks. Like have the Franks move out of the territories with the intention of giving them a Fettus, and play all kind of stupid little games like that. But that's the... I'm not going to say it's the only way. I wanted to, but... that's the only obvious way that I see of trying to take advantage of this, and it feels gamey as hell. What I should be doing, what makes sense, what actually is what happened in some cases, was I should be saying, look, you're here, it's yours. I admit that it's yours, I'll give you some victory points, but I share in them. That's what a Fettus really is often the case of, is... Now, it might be that you'd offer it mid-turn or something as a way of avoiding the problem. And that would make sense too. And you can do that. So I'm beginning to see ways that it could happen. It requires, though, a level of awareness during the other player's turn that I'm not going to have, opposed or solo. We're able to reach something that's semi-similar, which is... we managed to beat them here and here. This was the important one, and drove them. They didn't have to go to Tarraconensis. They could have gone here, and that would have lost us control as the Romans, which might be the better value, right? Because the Romans might be winning the game. But it's hard to view that, and I'm trying to play this with the, yeah, I want to feather my own nest for the most part. It's not at all clear, you know, maybe Rome's points are all the beginning. Oops, that's a point I didn't give the Romans. Maybe Rome's points are all front-loaded as they are, you know, in Britannia. Most of them are, or in a lot of these games. So, you know, destroying the Western Empire is probably a better move than trying to take 10 points away from them here, when I get nothing for this and I get 5 points for this. That's 5 points on every player, on the other two players as well. Granted, I don't do as much to Rome, and maybe Rome's doing great in this. Really hard to tell. What I can tell you is that some of the barbarians don't appear to be doing too well. But on the other hand, I'm Persia, and I may be doing very well with the Persians because I'm getting these 20 points per turn thing. So it's really hard to make those judgments. So I think that's it for the Western Romans, because they have no leaders and no invasion or anything like that. So they aren't able to do any kind of follow-up. We didn't succeed in... these were not nomadic hordes, so we didn't succeed in submitting them the more easy way. And I don't know, I'll leave that like that, because maybe I'll remember. All right, that's it for this one. Needs to push back, throwing the Persians back here, which is rural desert. Whatever. Yeah, no, I understand. It's just, I don't agree that you should be able to retreat into the desert and stay there. That's my problem. But and they also end up clearing the east. Now, their points are such that I think their next best move is either... So the east was important to them. But now they're interested in Euphrates or the Armenian territories. I could grab some of this Armenian territory, or I could swing around and try to hit Euphrates. They're equal. They're 5 points each. They're going to get a lot of points. but I'm not sure which I like better. I think I like going after the clear terrain better than the mountainous with a fair amount of forces there. Although the Persians are going to be able to reinforce it, and they're able to throw their satraps in there. I went for the Armenia. It looked like I couldn't get enough reinforcements into there. So now I reposition my forces, and then we count the points for everyone. That'll just get added here, because everyone who has points for this turn I'll just have to run through, and that's going to be kind of a tedious process, but it's fairly simple. So I don't know, you just basically go down the line for that turn and say, oh, do I have this, do I have this? And so these are actually minus points. That's hard to see, but so I'll be checking to see if the Romans get penalized anywhere, and I don't believe they do. I think I cleared everything. But that's the kind of check that I'll be making. So with the Byzantines here, I'll be getting 5 points for each of these, and another 10 points because I cleared the Orient. And yeah, pink, red, whatever, is going to score huge points this turn again. Both the Roman factions got over 40 points. The Franks got 15 points this turn, and Arcosani got 3 for their raid that I hadn't noted. That gives me a total of 106, my biggest total yet. So that's around close to 300 for my total. Green, the Huns, the Alemanni got 4. They would have gotten 8, but they're submitted, so they only get 4. The Huns themselves only got 13, and none of that's territorial points. They don't get any for this turn. And the Saxons picked up 1 for raiding. That gave me a total of 18. That puts me to 25 points. Close game, right? Yeah, but you can never tell with these. I mean, so most Britannia-style games, the first victory point phase, you get some feel for how you're doing, but and they're not that. You're not getting 10% of the points of your opponent and saying I'm in good shape at all. In fact, that just doesn't happen. But sometimes, like in Britannia itself, the Romans score 90, 100 points by the first victory point turn, and other people are around 30 or 40. So I want to keep that in mind. That kind of level of difference is possible. Okay. But also, this could be far more skewed, I don't feel like Green has gotten any opportunities to get points, except if the Alemanni were free. Then they'd have some additional points here. But that we're talking 4 points difference. So this doesn't look bad for them right now. Over here, for yellow, the Persians pulled in 25 points. They seem to be getting that kind of point each turn. They kind of wore themselves out on the first turn. Alans got 2. But the Vandals scored a nice 19 points, which feels pretty good to me. They're not submitted or anything. That gave me 46 total. And so we're a little over 100, about a third what the Roman player is. We're hoping the Romans just disintegrate completely, but again, points-wise. But again, we don't know if this is balanced, to begin with, or whatever. And it's one of the problems with the system is, like, as a whole, you kind of have to play a game or so of it, at least a game or two, to get a feel for how the points just naturally fall before you start making decisions of, oh, we've got to really wipe out the Romans. So in Britannia, quite often, if you're playing with kind of newer players, if you play the Romans, people are like, oh, we got to hose you, and they will hose your other countries. Because they can't really do much about the Romans, or they can't do much that they don't want to do from their cards. But sometimes they'll go wipe out your Scots or something like that, when actually you're not doing that well, even though you're like twice the score of other people. And that makes it a difficult game to ramp up to, right? You just do not know what the score sheets are. I try to keep score sheets between games to help me get a feel for what the score should be. What I found with Hispania, which is the one this reminds me the most of, different designer again, I have to note that Kelly kind of, I think, felt like I was making it sound like that was a Thibaut design. It's not. But it's under AWE, and he may have had some influence in it. I don't think he's in the credits in any way. Or may have had some it may have had some influence on this. That game is particularly, it's both unbalanced but also highly variable, the points you get, in a way that it's not just, hey, I got some different dice, whatever. There are possibilities for groups that can get you a lot of points being bagged early in the game. And then to the blue player, the Ostrogoths, etc. The Ostrogoths only got 3. The Visigoths got 12, which is not terrible looking to me. It looks like that's about what they can hope for. Remember, with the Ostrogoths, I pulled in 20-something points and escaped the Huns. So I shouldn't be too unhappy about them, but they have a long ride to get to where they're going. The Angles, that looks like 11. Oh no, that's the Burgundy. The Burgundy got 11, including getting a minor point area. They're not submitted. They look like they're in okay shape. Western Rome is in trouble, right? As they should be. All these invasions. And then the Angli ended things up with a single point for their raid. That gets me to 27. So they're at 50, 60 something. So, green is clearly losing in points right now, but it's really hard to tell how big a deal that... Oh, I see what's missing. The Swebby. But the Swebby can't get any territorial points for this turn. One thing that's missing is that big barbarian invasion could have pulled in 15 points per player if they had sacked Rome. And they did not get anywhere near it. Rome was stronger at the beginning of this than maybe they should have been. However you want to look at that, and that may have been the fault of me not playing that extra turn. So they were the Germanic barbarians were supposed to get an extra action, and I'm beginning to think that I fucked up by not doing that. It's kind of iffy because such an action could have put them in a position where they'd all be submitted, or some of them would have been submitted before this turn. So there could be hard calls on whether or not you wanted to do that. Anyway, that's where we're sitting. We're sending this one up, and then I'll start setting up the next turn, I guess. Not sure I terribly want to, but whatever. All right. Up it goes.